Hello out there. It is time once again for the oldest nerd and Professor O to talk movies. And this time we're going to talk a real turkey. This is Flash Gordon. Now, this is not the movie serial or the compilation that was done in the 30s, but rather a 1980 film which was produced by Dino De Laurentiis and got his seventh choice for a director and had an English speaking crew and an Italian speaking crew, and they couldn't understand each other. And someone said that it was probably the most expensive movie, $20 million movie to make of improvisation. So that kind of sizes up this film. Oh, what do you think of this film? You've and I hadn't seen it in years, and I thought it was better the first time I saw it.
Hang on, I've got to get my foot on the pedal so that so that this thing will take off. Yeah, that was one of the funniest scenes. No, I really, at first, my first viewing, I thought this is a turkey,
Yes.
but but I thought I was just the wrong age, because I could see if you were 7, 8, 9, maybe even a little, you could be. It just how you are, where you are in your life as a reception is a big thing in this film. And then I watched it again, and I liked it. I really could see some fun nuggets in this film, the camp of the film, and I just started to appreciate it, including the fact that to launch I mean, who comes up with this stuff? To launch the ship, he can't do it by himself, Dr. Zarkov. That's what I was doing. I was looking for my pedal to push. You can't just punch a button to run. You've got to have somebody in there.
That's true. That's
And I
true.
love the way this is at the beginning of the movie, so it's not a bad thing to talk about. But I love the way all these horrible events are coming on Earth and happening to Earth. And of course, Ming has got this control board in English of all these buttons that are going to cause these horrible
Yeah.
things. Which one do I want? Hot ice, earthquakes,
Yeah,
volcanoes.
they'd never heard of Earth when this planet's called Earth, and
Earth
then there's something that says earthquake on his panel. So I mean,
and the earthquake
go
in
figure.
English on the panel. Yeah,
All right, so let's back this up and
yeah. Back up.
understand that um, basically De Laurentiis did not understand that because this was based on a comic book that it was not supposed to be comical. This was more like Prince Valiant. This was more like Buck Rogers. This was more like it was a dramatic
Right.
what they would call graphic novel these days. But at the time, they called everything comics, and I think that he misunderstood and wanted to make this funny, and that really wasn't what the material would dictate. And so that's part of the problem. The art direction was great.
Yes.
The photography, same guy that did the original Star Wars, did principal photography for this, and there's some very good camera work. The acting is great by Max von Sydow as Ming the Merciless, and some other notable things. But our two leads, who are not even put on the poster for this film,
Yeah.
probably didn't deserve to be put on the poster.
No.
Sam J. Jones was noted by De Laurentiis' mother-in-law, saw him on The Dating Game and thought he'd be good for Flash Gordon. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is
Not
this
many acting bones
it
in
was a
that
mess to
body.
begin with, and they didn't really know what they were doing, and they had to kind of muddle their way through it, and it still might have worked, and in some points it did. It was done well in certain places. But I think that what you have to go do is figure out just where Flash Gordon came from, and I did a little research
Right.
on that, and he was Buck Rogers was a thing since about 1927 in the comic strips.
And this is Buck Rogers, not Flash
This
Gordon.
was
It's
Buck
so easy to
Rogers.
conflate them.
Buck
So it starts
Rogers
with Buck Rogers.
was immensely popular. There were books about him. There were radio shows and things like this, and but in about 1933, King Feature Syndicate thought, well, why don't we have a Buck Rogers? And so
Right.
they took one of their artists, Alex Raymond, to create a strip that was kind of like Buck Rogers, but not.
Right.
And so he didn't have any ideas, and he went to a book which was written in 1933 called When Worlds Collide,
Oh, yeah.
and took the
Made into a
story
movie later.
took the story yeah took the
Yeah.
story from that and created the strip with mostly scantily clad women and muscular guys. I mean, it was meant to be uh, rather broad in its appeal. It wasn't
Right.
strictly science fiction; it was adventure, and that was the way they did it. And it was reasonably successful. They by that it came out in 1934, and then in 1935 they did a serial. Universal did a serial, and they paid like gosh, I think it was
Oh,
a big
350
budget. It was a big budget serial.
$350,000.
Yeah,
I think it was 350 for
yeah.
to make that, and that's
For
a
a
ton of
12-part
money, you know.
serial, that is amazingly
Whoa,
high. I mean, even
yeah.
under today's dollars, it's not
It's
shouldn't
not
be.
nothing to sneeze at. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And so what we have here is it became very popular. It spawned off a radio show as well, and when I was a kid, we saw the serial. That they did that right before Superman.
Which one, Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers?
Flash Gordon.
Flash
They
Gordon
had
was
Buck Rogers too, and I
right.
have a DVD of Buck Rogers now. But the Flash Gordon serials I always found as a kid to be more interesting because they had, I mean, it was easier to follow. You
Yeah,
you
easier to
have the good guy, the bad guy, and the wingmen and the sea people and the all of that, and it worked. And Doctor Zarkov, you can't
Dr.
yeah.
Zakharov, yeah. And
So
apparently, I did you've got great research there. One little tidbit I picked up was apparently from an article in a film magazine. It mentioned that apparently Buck Rogers was originally named Anthony Rogers or Tony, and they watched one of the creators watched a western and thought, no, this Tony is too ethnic, so they
yeah,
changed it to Buck Rogers. And then
okay.
apparently, and this I was confirming with you or before the broadcast, is Buster Crab connects both of these serials, right?
Yeah.
Buster, that's amazing that he's in both of them.
Yeah, he was a swashbuckler in the classic sense, and so it worked. I think he was also, they had Johnny Weissmuller at the same time. They had as Tarzan, and they had
Right,
uh, oh goodness, Robin Hood, Errol Flynn.
right,
That was an era of you had the athletic leading men, and so
right.
that kind of followed. And Buster Grab was good. He lived well into the 80s, I think, and actually reprised his appeared in the
Bro,
Buck Rogers TV series that happened during the 80s. That
during the
he
80s,
made he
that's
made a
amazing. He was
made a
and he
single.
was an Olympic swimmer, I
He
think,
was
an
he
Olympic
was
swimmer. Yeah. So definitely had the body for this type of the heroic
right.
body for this. Yeah,
Right,
that
and
is
they wore, shorts and tank tops and things like this, so it followed along with this whole concept that they were going with.
and
But
apparently Buck Rogers was a little bit more into the science, although I use use the word and actually he did have a science advisor. I can't remember that Buck Rogers, but it was more into science, and Flash Gordon was more into the
yeah,
adventure.
Flash Gordon was just going to a different planet, and Buck Rogers had been frozen since our present day into the future, where they had spaceships that could go to Venus and talk to Venusians, and
The-
and it worked for whatever for how it's whatever it's worth. It worked very well. And
one
they had a lot of things, and we're getting off the subject talking about Buck Rogers, but there were a few things in the Buck Rogers serials that were obviously picked up by Star Trek. And I
ah,
doubt, and in the case of this movie, the rights of it were owned by Dino De Laurentiis, because he had been, I mean, Federico Fellini
yes,
owned the rights to this film for a certain amount of time. He had been a contributor to the comic strip back
in
in
the
the day in
50s.
the 40s,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
so he owned it, and of course, a big fan of the serials was George Lucas. And he based
Right,
Star Wars based on movie serials, especially Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, and wanted to make Flash Gordon, but
right.
because Fellini owned the rights to it, he couldn't make the film, and so he went and made Star Wars instead, made his own concept.
And
And I
who's
would have
the
loved to
guy?
have seen what Flash Gordon would have looked like coming out of George Lucas. I
Oh,
imagine that would have been a tremendous film,
and
but
what a
it
difference.
wasn't to be. And Dino De
Yeah.
Laurentiis somehow got rights from Fellini to do this. Wanted Fellini to direct it, but Fellini would not have directed. Neither would Sergio Leone or six other directors, and finally came up with this guy who,
The current director. You know, they
yeah.
tried, I think it was Peter Weir.
No,
And
no,
that the
it was Mike Hodges that directed this.
Mike Hodges directed, but for the first 3 weeks, they had, I believe it was the Australian director that did, let's see, Nicholas Roeg. Yeah,
Okay,
Nicholas Roeg, not
okay.
Peter Weir. I always get it. Yeah, Nicholas Roeg, who's directed some really interesting films. I'm just like he was, and yeah, he did Walkabout. The Man Who Fell to Earth with David Bowie is a Nicholas Roeg film,
Interesting.
and he apparently the whole tone was way philosophical, like Nicholas Roeg is going to do in a film, philosophical, dark. And they looked, I think De Laurentiis looks at the first 3 weeks of shooting and says, "You're fired." and they
Yeah,
and then they got the British, yeah, the British guy to come in and handle things. And considering the different the background history, the crews, the Italian and English crews, and uh, all the and two complete. Well, one especially, one non-actor. Your lead is really not the. He really did look like he came off the Jets, the New York Jets.
yeah.
Straight into the. He had that part down pat. But
Well, an interesting thing, one ad lib that he did do, they didn't know how to end the film.
right.
And so they have, of course, Flash just lurching into the camera going, yeah, and that was him. It was all made up.
Hey, and that does happen. That's true.
Thankfully, he got that in before he left. They
Yeah.
had a Christmas break and he never came back. And
Oh,
understanding that he got into fights with people, and there's
right.
one place where he had a bad cut on his head, and so they have Daryl Laurentiis in the hospital room telling the doctors to stitch it very carefully because he has to have a good-looking face to continue in the film.
And then
But
he ends up
but he
walking
was
out.
yeah,
He
he
ends up
ends up walking out, and they had to do and they basically said, find the best stand-in we can find and finish the film. And then of course, when it came time to redub, what do you call that?
ADR, automatic
A-
dialogue replacement.
yeah, ADR.
Yeah,
When it came time for that, of course, he wasn't available, and so they had to get somebody else, and they didn't credit the guy that they got.
they
So
didn't.
Sam J. Jones's voice was nowhere in this film.
They found a close match. So I
Yeah,
gotta admit, I think this film has a huge cult following, and I know that that there are fans that can tell the difference between the two voices. I didn't notice it, but Sam Jones sitting in the audience at the film he'd walked out on. It's his first movie. It's the biggest break he's ever going to get because he's not real acting material. And it just it doesn't prove that in this film that he's acting material. Walks out of the film, goes to the premiere, and he could tell the difference when he'd been dubbed in. But
I would hope so.
When you walk out of a film, stuff's going to happen. When you're more than it's not, and none of it's good when you
Yeah,
walk
that's
out.
true. You
Who
walk out of
was
anything, it's not going to be good.
who was Emperor Ming's daughter? What was her name in the film? Emperor Ming's daughter.
Aura, Princess Aura.
Aura, right, Princess Aura. Princess Aura, at a certain point, she has a little, like a small person that she's kind of guiding through because they had all these different
Yeah.
ethnicities, and she pulls the small person's on the leash, and if you'll notice, she says, "Come along, Fellini." And
Yes.
the small person is named Fellini.
Yes.
Gotta
And
have your nod to Frederica, who is one of probably top 5 best ever directors ever.
yeah.
Made probably most famous for Eight and a Half, and the film Eight and a Half, and he's just a brilliant, wonderful
Yeah.
director. So it's funny what you mentioned. What would he not? I was thinking, what would he not have directed in the '70s had he been directing this? But they did not. He was interested. It was his property, but somehow, I guess he ends up selling it to De Laurentiis and definitely not to Lucas. And this kind of reminds me of it. This is when I was taking like film genres as a class, and you're talking about film
Yeah.
genres, a genre that I think came about after I had that class. I'll put it this way: is the genre of a space opera, and this is
Yes.
a space opera, and so
Oh, by
it's
the
funny.
way, the person that the princess was dragging around was Kenny Baker, who
Oh,
was,
that's
of course, performed R2D2 sometime earlier in Star Wars.
no,
Yeah,
that's amazing. I did not know that. That's Fellini.
yeah, that's
Oh,
Fellini.
that's incredible. And there's probably a few more connections of actors between the two because by '79 they're in between films. They could have
Right.
easily, yeah, yeah, that is incredible. Well, so how would you define? What are some things when you think about a space opera? What are some things that because like I said, you think of film noir, detective films, and this in a sense we've already done this. We did Battle Beyond the Stars, which is a space opera. We've done Star Wars, which is a space opera.
Yes.
What are some of the things when you think of a space opera? What are some of the things that you think of a film noir? You're going to have people smoking coffees, dark streets, glistening alleys. What are some of the things you think of when you think of
Well,
a space
in
opera?
any kind of science fiction that I've ever seen, it doesn't hold to a specific style because I mean, you look at Alien, and that's not exactly film noir; it's classic horror.
Right,
You look at films like Star Wars, which is essentially a western.
right.
You have action adventure. I think this one kind of falls into that, or at least it tried to. And some of them are just comedy. I mean,
Yeah.
Spaceballs. All it was just one line leading to the next, and so I think that that's the one thing that I like about science fiction is it can kind of cover all bases.
True, true, there's a Journey Through Sci-Fi
Yeah,
podcast. They had clumped things together, and consider this a space opera. And they did mention something. You've got an emperor or
yeah,
incredibly, ostentatious bad guy,
right.
a young hero, kind of like uh, a young hero going through the transition, like the hero with the hero with 1,000 faces, kind of Joseph
Yeah,
Campbell
yeah.
hero's journey. A princess, not necessarily an overt princess in this one. There's the daughter, and of course blasters and yeah, just and the
By the
and
way, it was in Flash Gordon that they came up with the term zap.
zap. That's incredible.
Yeah.
That really made, zapped.
That was in the comic strip, of course, but zap was not coined before that as what noise of a ray gun.
And ray guns. I think this one hits almost all the marks of what space opera.
Yeah,
What's interesting in a space opera, nobody sings. It's not like an opera,
yeah,
but it's definitely got the largeness, the huge heroes, the
yeah.
yeah,
I did like the concept behind it because I mean they were fairly okay. They were basically redoing the serials and
ah,
trying to make it more cartoonish.
right,
Unfortunately, and
right.
and in doing that, I think they misunderstood what they were supposed to be doing here, and really did not treat the characters or the story with respect.
Interesting.
I mean, Max von Sydow did. I
Yeah,
think that he played his character and you believed him,
right,
I think there's that. And I love the art direction where they had everything was in bright primaries,
right.
and this was meant to relay kind of the comic book aesthetic of it, which took away some of the reality of it. But I mean, with science fiction, you don't really need to worry
Yeah.
too much about reality.
Especially this
But
kind of
the
almost
other really
anti-science.
cartoony live action film that they did was Dick Tracy. And you
That
remember
is
Dick
true.
Tracy did not do well,
No, it did not.
despite having who was the actor?
That was, Warren Beatty.
Warren Beatty. I was thinking Paul Newman's Warren Beatty as Dick Tracy, and you know the bright colors in that, also the whole comic strip kind of thing didn't work.
Yeah, they really wanted that as a straight up comedy. This one I like better. You're right because of the art direction, the really bright colors. It was, and the funny thing is, I think yeah they were going yeah you're right misreading comic and going for something just funny, but some of the actors quite didn't quite get that. So
Yeah,
Timothy Dalton also is very serious, and that
yeah,
actually works.
yes,
The way he plays it takes it seriously, yeah, Max von Sydow was fantastic at doing that, and so was I haven't seen him in a lot of things, but I thought Blessed, is it Michael Blessed?
yes. Now there's a
Just
story about
got
him that when he was a kid, he read Flash Gordon and always thought himself, imagined himself being Prince Voltan.
oh my,
And
that
so
worked
obviously he
out.
jumped at the chance to play it.
He's one of my favorite characters in this turkey. Not that I'm going to call it a full blown turkey, but it because I can see why. And actually, I think it's him knowing the part and playing that part as well as he makes that transition. And I love that line. I mean, I'm not when he says I'm just a silly this silly old bird just underestimated, didn't understand Flash Gordon, and then he
Yeah.
goes and just realize wishes he had a second chance. And of course, with Flash being dead, you get like 3, 4, 5 chances to. He's
Yeah.
never quite dead, and so
You know they wanted Kurt Russell to be Flash,
oh my
and
goodness,
Kurt Russell turned down because he thought that they weren't taking the material seriously. So
yep.
imagine that.
You know, he would have taken it seriously. I think the reason some of it
Yeah,
works, or that I can say I liked it better the second time around, but the reason it works is you had enough actors taking it seriously. Thank goodness
yeah,
that helps pull it together. God, Timothy Dalton is so good. They got to reach in,
yeah,
and I love the way this film borrows from things. It borrows from Dune.
yeah.
You got to reach in the Benny Gesserit witch. I can't remember what Paul Atreides had to reach into the device. It's
Yeah, I
called where you,
remember that. Yeah,
but
I didn't like the lead up to that. That was a little crude to me.
yeah, you're thinking, what is this film? There's all sorts of scantily clad
We're a
implications.
family show, and we weren't going
Yeah,
to describe exactly what happened before he reached
what?
his hand in the box. But
That's exactly right. Oh, whoa! That box. I will not. There's an article that that box has many implications. I'll put
yeah,
it that way.
well, that too.
Yeah, that's. But I love the different societies, and I'm sure they may have been better represented in the original serial. But
They
all
were,
these,
yeah.
yeah, these different societies of the Birdmen, the
Well, you know
Hawks.
that's something that science fiction always misses. Earth is a very complicated group of different nationalities, and every other planet you go to has one race and one government.
Well,
And
sometimes in Star Trek they had two
okay, sometimes
because
they had
because
two, and they would
they're
war
at
with each
war
other.
with each other.
But on Mongo they have uh, all
Oh,
kinds of different city states there. They're all floating island kind of
yes.
things, and they have the bird people, and they have the fish people, and they have
The small
and the
people, they
small
got the little
people. And yeah,
yeah, in fact, there was the
it's
people
almost
like
Gulliver's
from
Travels.
you're right. I mean, think that there's the people from Africa. He said it felt like it was from Africa, like kind
Yeah,
of tribal. He says, fall on your sword. You must, that, and then in some, and then there was what else were there? There was, I felt like okay, there was there was another one too. When in that first scene, when everything's coming together, in the very first scene, I want to say there were 7 different. Uh, Felt like there were 7.
that
Some
sounds
don't
about
get a
right.
lot of
Yeah,
screen time, but yeah, there that was amazing. And you really have another poignant moment is when and God, it's Max von Sydow, and the actor that played the leader of kind of like I said, it felt like more like a kind of an what it would have been an African nation when he has to fall on his sword.
Yeah,
And
Clytus,
I love what he says. We bring to you. We have run out of resources, which because Ming has depleted them of resources.
of
So
course.
I have pledged to you. The only thing I can give is our loyalty, and it looks like a smart move until Ming says, "Well, prove it by falling on your sword." And as and that was just one just that scene. It took me a second time to watch it because so much is going on in that scene, and then you can see the detail and the art direction, and just well done. That was a
It
well
really
done
was.
piece.
It really was, and I think you know when you think of the film and you remember it years after having seen it, you remember Max von Sydow's performance and
Yeah,
little else, and frankly, he did steal the picture,
he does. Yeah, he really
and
does.
it amazes me that they would have thought of somebody else for him. I think um, I've lost the reference to it, but
Of
he
who they would
was
have been. Yeah, apparently there's a good behind the scenes. There's like a 15-minute, the classic behind the scenes
yeah
featurette back in the day. They shot it on 16 millimeter, but they really you get it, and they interviewed him, and the word was that he was in trouble for with his taxes from Sweden,
yeah.
and he owed a lot of money, so he literally did this for the money, but when you look at when you
But
look
he
at his
didn't phone it
performance.
in like it happened in Star Wars, where um, oh
Not Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan, yeah,
Obi-Wan, oh, yes.
he. I mean, if you look at that first film, he always looked like he just awakened
Yeah,
or
exactly.
was hungover. I'm not quite sure which, but he thought it was a silly picture and only
Yeah.
did it for the money, and forever will never be thought of as the person who did Bridge on the River Kwai
One of the
or
saddest
Doctor
things I've ever
Zhivago.
apparently yeah, right, and apparently, maybe 5 years later, a little kid comes up to him and says, "Obi-Wan, I have modeled my life's philosophy." Maybe the kid's about 13 by now, 14. "I modeled it after you, Obi-Wan. You are my hero." And basically, Obi-Wan pulls a William Shatner and says, "Get a life, kid." I was doing it for the but the funny thing is, in some respects with both Obi-Wan and Max von Sydow, a little bit of distance, wherever it was coming from, it actually made the part work. I mean, for
Yeah.
somehow Obi-Wan still makes it work. But you're right. If you watch it on that second level of knowing that he's a little disinterested in the whole project, it adds another layer. But if you don't know that, you can kind of he just feels like yeah, he's just woken up and he's going to be that mentor you're looking for. But
Yeah.
but oh, what a let's see, we were talking about the Obi-Wan, Max von Sydow. Princess Aura, I thought did a pretty good job too. It's funny, you look at him individually and Princess Aura, and then the guy in the mask we can't see very much, but he does a good job.
Yeah.
Man, when his dies, and they've got all these crazy details. I love it when he dies, those eyeballs just pop out.
Yeah. They like I say, there was nothing lacking in art direction in this film.
No, there's the
But
lizard people.
and I want to say something about Haim Topol, who
Oh
we remember
yes,
mostly from the movie Fiddler on the Roof. He played
Fiddler on the Roof.
yeah, uh, Tavia, but in this he plays a perfect Dr. Zarkov. I mean, he's
Yes.
believable from minute one, no matter how silly his lines are. So that's I give him great credit. Interestingly, Sam J. Jones was a dark-haired fellow. They had his hair bleached blonde, and then Melody Anderson was a blonde, and they had her hair bleached brown. So I don't really know why.
Why they did that? Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
works for Sam. It's
kind of yeah,
but yeah, Zarkov was great, and
yeah.
he plays just crazy enough, and yet he really is ahead of the curve. When you look at him, he's absolutely heroic character. He's trying to save Earth.
Well, yeah, the
His
backstory on him was he was thrown out of NASA because he kept trying to make people believe that there was another planet about to collide with the Earth. which
Ah,
is
that
exactly what was going on.
is his backstory in Where Worlds Collide? Is that kind of where
Yeah,
that comes
yeah,
from? It connects to
yeah.
somebody seeing the other world that's
Right.
gonna come.
Well, that's kind of the way you always do it. Any kind of disaster that strikes, there's only one person that really sees it, and nobody else believes him until
This is true.
they see the burning planet coming in at them.
Yeah, or like we did It Came From Outer Space, where
Yes,
Richard Carlson is the only one that sees the spaceship. Everybody thinks it's a meteor, and
right.
yeah, that's interesting. Oh, and I loved his lab. The effects were good. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, there's that NASA. I love the way the news is on top of everything. Almost yesterday, the Ming has started punching buttons. It feels like 45 minutes before we cut to Zarkov. Well, basically, it's within the same day, and then there's a report on the news immediately about it, telling us, don't worry, nothing to see here. The eclipse is, yeah, but the eclipse is nothing. And then you get the backstory of Zarkov. He's got a great lab. The
Yeah.
effects of this. Think about all the plane crashes into his greenhouse while his assistant is running away. The only person, I mean, he does have some common sense. He's not going to get on that. He's not going to get on that rocket and push the pedal. And
Yeah.
so the assistant is running away, and then the plane crashes in with, yeah,
Dale and Flash. Yeah.
Dale. And thank you, Dale. And Flash is piloting the plane. This was again, I caught it on the
Oh, by
second
the way,
time.
there's something. Speaking of the plane, when they're
Yeah,
getting on the plane at the airport, the luggage handler is Robbie Coltrane, who was later Hagrid in the Harry Potter films.
no,
Yes.
oh, that's incredible. And I love the way Ming in the plane literally takes the pilot. Apparently, he can cause these massive mega things to happen, but then he can also micromanage and just pull those pilots straight out of the glass.
Yeah.
And then Flash has got to land the plane. But the effects are fantastic, and the space effects. I love the space effect.
Yeah.
It's perfect for this film. It looks nothing like the classic science fiction, like we've done Contact, and how
Yes.
Contact has a beautiful austere look of space. This is wow. I mean, there's a portal
This
you
is
go
all comic
into.
book, and they were very conscious to have this comic book style in
Yes,
that who will see what the stars look like the way they look in the comic books. We look at the technology the way it would look in the comic books with the circles and the lightning bolts and the bright colors, and
right,
they did that here. It's almost surreal in the way that they used it, because it
really.
feels like you're seeing animation and live action all in the same thing.
That's true, and absolutely, that's a great point. In some respects, better than, I mean, I do like some animation, like the film with Sheep Detectives was so good with that came out this summer with animation and live action.
To
But
say
this,
nothing of Roger Rabbit.
oh, to say nothing, this works in some respects as well as that. It just
Yeah.
beautifully comes together. But again, back to your art direction, just and so yeah, then they go, and I guess those are some of the large. I'm thinking they're shooting this in Pinewood, maybe the studios. I think it is shot in England because
It
they
is.
needed
It
a
is. It's got
lot
a
of room
lot
to
of
make this
English
work.
actors in it, and I have a thing here on how many of those people were in. Let me see if I have it. Usually mentions here. Okay, yeah. Let's see. It was Scotland.
Interesting.
They did according to this. Starling Films was a production company, and it was the airstrip at Breakish Sky, Highland, Scotland, UK. That was one of the
It's
locations,
wow.
and De Laurentiis' company did it. They don't show what studios they did.
Apparently, in making it, he was almost running out of money and put his own money behind the film.
I wouldn't be surprised at that.
Yeah, that's but the and then there's Ming's. Yeah, and again, in the world building, it's so good. You've got Ming's giant palace, the control rooms, all the control rooms, the infrastructure of his planet, of his palace, the police state, the everybody watching those screens, the
Yeah.
shields. and then the different worlds you go to are really well represented.
Yeah.
Did
Interestingly, it was not made for a big budget. Even
Yeah,
Star Wars was made. Well, I think they made it for like 17 million. It was a very cheap film,
right.
but they made this for 20, but it only made 27 million worldwide,
Wow.
which De Laurentiis, if he spent his own money, he lost it.
Lost it. Yeah, on that. Yeah, that's a good point. That's so you know what you need to make after that is Dune in
Yeah.
1984. No, I'm kidding. Or did Taylor? Yeah,
Well,
I don't know if
it
they.
is rather interesting. It is rather interesting that George Lucas wanted to make Flash Gordon. He couldn't do it, and so he made Star Wars. And because Star Wars being made, that's when De Laurentiis said, "Oh, we've got to make Flash Gordon." So
I guess.
I think another thing to be brought up, the effects on other things. Flash Gordon's costume, which they don't show in this, but in the serial,
Yeah, that's right.
he wore leotards and a cape, and that was the influence for Jerry Schuster's Superman,
Superman.
which
That I
didn't come
thought
out
you
for another few years. And
another.
so
Yeah,
Superman was based on Flash Gordon, and so
Flash
was
Gordon.
Batman.
That's amazing. Spandex.
Yeah,
Yeah.
spandex. Nobody thought about that for superheroes before that. They all wore, khakis and and a trench coat.
And I think there is an Adam West Batman connection to this Flash Gordon film. I think one of the writers
Yeah,
from the Adam West Batman had written for, and so you get this amalgamation of people, of the actors taking it seriously, and a misinterpretation of what Flash Gordon should have been, because it was serious in its own way. It wasn't comic, and yeah, but it is amazing that it comes together as well as it does. And the floating cities are incredible. I was just looking at the post; those flying cities in the clouds are incredible. And I love the political infrastructure. Like you mentioned, so many science fiction films just either have one civilization on a planet. Two is amazing. They only have
yes.
two because there's a war going on. But this has just and they can't come together. They need to overthrow Ming, and they can't come together. And it's funny when Flash Gordon mentions, to Princess Aura, who's on his lap, haven't you ever thought about coming together in revolt? Working together, teamwork. And no, she never had. But
That
that's
that
the only
almost
way it's going to work.
reminds me of Mom and Dad Save the Universe. You remember that picture? Um,
I have not seen that.
it's two suburban people, and their station wagon is transported to another planet, and Eric Idle is the king of the planet, and
Ah,
he said, "We need you." And they said, "Well, what can we do? We're just normal humans." He said, "Everybody on this planet is stupid. I know it because I'm the smartest one here, and I'm stupid too."
a little bit of idiocracy in there. That's
That was true.
Eric Idle. Oh, I can't believe I have not seen that. I love Eric Idle
Yeah,
stuff.
Mom and Dad Save the Universe. It's
Yeah,
a silly film, but it does have its moments. But back
like
here,
this film.
while we're talking about other films, we were talking about Timothy Dalton, of course, being James Bond 7 years after this film
Right.
was gone. So it didn't tear up his career, thankfully.
Nope. He
Max
didn't walk out.
von Sydow was also in Never Say Never Again, and
Oh my
Topol was
goodness.
in For Your Eyes Only. Um, let's see. Robbie Coltrane was in Goldeneye, and also in The World Is Not Enough.
That's right.
And let's see, they have a whole number of people. Let's see.
Robbie Coltrane was a great Russian spy. He was
Yes,
who gets his knee shot by Pierce Brosnan. His knee had been shot, and so he had no good memories of Pierce Brosnan.
yeah.
Oh, he was
But I
fantastic.
mean, there's about 13 actors from this film that appeared in James Bond films.
I'm surprised Princess Aura didn't make it in there, but
Now I'm afraid she didn't know.
but there's I gotta while I do remember this little tidbit, and this film is there. It's just it's an amalgamation of camp, and it does work on a
Yes,
camp level. I can't necessarily define camp, but camp definitely as a genre is there's things. It's a complete amalgamation of things, but there's parts of camp where it does take itself seriously in a way, and so because if it just was all not taking itself seriously, I don't think it would succeed. But there's one thing there's where you mentioned the overt trying to put in some overt humor, like and I'll say having a pedal,
Yeah.
having, having to push a pedal to launch a ship is part of that. But there's this crazy line near the end of the film where it's Timothy Dalton, and it meets up with Princess Aura, and they've always kind of she's flirted and more than flirted with half a lot of the guys in this
Sure.
universe, but she really has a thing for Timothy Dalton's character.
Yeah.
And so they meet up. The whole place is fixing to blow up. They're all uniting to take over Ming, her father, who's horrible. They're uniting, and so he says, I think to her, I have changed, would you marry me? And she says, I have changed too. And then he does something that is what he usually does. And then she says, you haven't changed. And he says, you haven't changed. And then the doctor, the mad scientist, he's with them and he's working on I'm trying to that was what's the name of his
Zarkov.
character? Zarkov, right. Zarkov is trying to uh, undo a lock, and he says, "Oh, I figured out how these locks work. They didn't change the prime numbers, whatever the prime numbers are in this universe,
Yeah.
but they didn't change it. See, they didn't change. So he's playing on I've changed, you've changed. They didn't change. It's a strangest little
Yeah.
interchange of dialogue. It's just kind of bizarre." And I thought, that's where they're really trying some humor, and it sort of works.
I've always thought of camp as being jokes that don't go over.
That's a good point too.
That would be low camp.
And there's so many of them you just put a genre, you just
Yeah.
say this is camp. Put a label on it and it's fixed. I'm not critical of camp though. It can be fun. But
No, I mean certainly some good camp has been done.
there is good camp.
I would say like Airplane.
Yeah, oh gosh, that's a great example.
That
of
is
awesome camp.
self-consciously campy and it works.
And that's where I've changed, you've changed. That's where this feels like. It felt like a little bit of Airplane in the middle of this movie,
Yeah.
especially when I got Zarkov is talking about, well, they didn't change the locks, and he's and then he gets the door open and off they go to save
Yeah.
Flash. But Airplane's a perfect example. Yeah, that oh god, that works. And I don't know if there's an Airplane connection with this film, but there's so much Star Wars. And yeah, it is. It's interesting. Here, George Lucas wants to do this film, and he ends up doing. What would you say are some of the differences when there's a lot of similarities, but there's a really tonal difference between Flash Gordon and Star Wars.
Yes.
And when you think about George Lucas doing Flash Gordon, what would he have done with it? 'Cause Star Wars in some respects feels more cohesive, less campy, more serious. You
Yeah.
can say it is campy,
But
in
it
some
might
respects,
have been. It might have been, if you think about it, if instead of Darth Vader, they had Ming the Merciless.
right?
And instead of Flash Gordon, they have Luke Skywalker.
Right.
You have your all-American hero, even though he's not American, and you have your good and evil, and
Right.
then you have all of the. I'm certainly was interested in all the other civilizations too, because they represented that in Star Wars. The
That's true.
Jawas, the Sandwalkers, the Hutts, the whatever Greedo was.
Yeah. Oh God, that universe is full.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jawas, Chewie,
Wookiees. Yeah.
yeah, Wookiees. I think universe is full of different races, ethnicities.
Yes.
Just chock full. So yeah, there are a lot of similarities there in the story when you think about. There's. It's funny. The princess here is the closest. The princess makes the trip with Flash in some respect. Yeah, the trip so she's there instead of discovering a princess, but you also do discover a princess who ends
Yeah.
up does the right thing.
But I think you would see more of this in the chapter 1 Star Wars film. That was what was that?
You mean A New Hope?
No. We're going back to the prequel, the first
To the
prequel.
prequels. Oh,
That was the emerging
God.
nonsense,
Yes.
and whatever. But but
Yeah,
but in that, and Lucas pointed it out that he modeled a lot of the technology, the Trade Federation, their ships
right.
designs, and their video radios and things like that were all modeled after Flash Gordon.
That's where the Phantom Menace. That's where he starts
Phantom Menace, that's
integrating
it.
in
Yeah.
a flat that, and you can see that. That's fascinating.
So he took
Wow,
more of the visual
absolutely.
cues from it after people would know, would get the relationship, I think, because
Right.
he was never one to tell you that he came up with this all by himself. He said that he grew up loving movie serials, and
Right.
Flash Gordon
It's
and Buck
true.
Rogers are certainly some of the biggest.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's funny. In terms of villains, you got Darth Vader, but the Emperor, to me, Ming is a more interesting. I mean, as much as you hate
The
Emperor
bad guy is
Palpatine,
always the most interesting one, though. If they play it right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ming. Oh God, Max von Sydow was fantastic.
Yes, yes.
That's, but it really, and of course, you got your music by Queen. It is a
Yeah, now
rock opera.
this has to do with the fact that Dino De Laurentiis had no idea who Queen was. And somebody suggested, he said, "Okay, let's do that."
That is amazing. And just well, it worked out great because
It
that's a whole
did.
nother legion of fans. I'm surprised, when you think about it, I'm surprised it didn't just knock it out of the ballpark because because you got Queen at the height of their popularity. Freddie
Yeah.
Mercury could have been a good Flash.
Yeah.
With all due respect to Sam Jones from the New York Jets, I think Freddie Mercury could have been an amazing Flash.
Yeah. I think
But
so. I imagine that there was a list of people that could have played him, and I saw somewhere that they did that, but I can't put my hand on it again. But certainly they wanted Kurt Russell, and Kurt Russell just basically didn't think that there was enough personality in the Flash character to be worth playing.
wow, that's yeah. I did have to hit De Laurentiis just a little bit. He did the Valachi papers. He did lots of big stuff. Serpico, as of course mainly as a producer. He would pull these ideas together. Here's the classic one. He would, he was always involved in it, whatever genre is hot. He's going to build on that. Sometimes in a good way. He's very successful film, 3 Days of the Condor, but if you're, that's kind of its own thing. It definitely it's connected to Watergate and that whole conspiratorial feel.
Yes.
But there's a classic one. What comes out after Jaws in 1977 with Richard Harris? It's Orca, the killer whale.
Yeah.
And then of course he did Dune, which I think he had that lost the rest of his money. Although I do love the film.
Yeah.
But the classic, Silence of the Lambs, which is fascinating, one of his
Yeah.
later
True.
films. But yeah, so he's kind of all over the place, and definitely, he definitely would say my imitation of you is flattery. This is an homage I'm doing with Orca, the killer whale.
Well, something about how movies are made, and you know that uh, you never set out to make a bad movie to begin with, and if you really love making movies, you're going to take a shot at everything.
You're good. That's a good point. That's a really good point. And he really did pull together a lot of talent. One thing I may have missed I was trying to remember if he did King Kong in 1975. I'm
I
not.
believe so. I believe so.
Yeah, I mean a lot of and a lot of those movies were fun. They really it's a fun. I enjoyed Orca. I was a projectionist at that time, and I really liked Orca the Killer Whale. It just it the problem was Richard Harris and his fishing boat traumatized it so much that the mother orca had a spontaneous abortion, and she did not forget that, and she didn't forget what Richard Harris looked like. And so, there he was performing Camelot, and here comes the killer whale. No, I'm kidding, but anyway, kind of like that. It was better than Jaws 4.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the filmography on Dino De Laurentiis.
Yeah,
Be
I mean,
interesting to.
Yeah, he's done, and apparently he did Barbarella in 1968 too. That's amazing.
He did, yes.
That which
Um,
was a comic book, comic book adaptation.
yeah,
Danger Diabolique, I have not seen, but definitely.
he did Hannibal, of course. U-571, if you remember that, that was a
Oh
great submarine movie. Um,
yes.
um, oh gosh,
Oh yeah,
Solomon and
Hannibal.
Sheba, that was a TV movie. Um, gosh,
Do you do you remember a film called Gargoyles? I think it was a made-for-TV film.
I do, yeah,
I'm yeah, that had I don't know if he did that or not. I don't think he
yeah.
did.
He actually did Blue Velvet. He was executive producer on that, but not credited for it.
My goodness.
Yeah.
My
Same
good.
for
Of course,
Leviathan. Um,
wow. I mean, a lot of his films were entertaining. Is all there is to say.
yeah.
That's and this film, it's
He was on he did Dune uncredited, executive producer, Conan the Destroyer, Firestarter,
and he
um, The Dead Zone, uncredited executive producer on Halloween,
wow with John
Amityville,
Carpenter.
Conan the
That's amazing.
Barbarian.
Oh, he probably
Um,
made some of his money back on
he's producer
Halloween.
for Ragtime. That was James Cagney's last film.
I'll be darned.
And let's see.
And he did do King Kong with
Yeah.
with Jeff Bridges and Jessica Lange. That's the 76 version
The
of King
Brakes Job, Orca.
Kong. Yep.
You're right about King Kong. Buffalo Bill and the Indians or Sitting Bull's History Lesson. I'm not certain that was a great film, but back in 1976. Lipstick, you remember that one.
Yep.
3 Days of the Condor,
Oh, that's a great
Mandingo,
film.
Death Wish.
Oh, Charles
I'm
Bronson.
just jumping through this. Serpico.
Uh, Burt Lancaster did
Yeah.
Serpico. Yeah.
Yes. And much more. I'm just running through.
It's funny you mentioned Halloween. I bet he made a lot of money. I hope, and he needed it by then because he had lost so much on this film. Halloween, such a low budget film with John Carpenter, but producers do. That we joke about how
Battle of the
producers.
Bulge. I remember that was a big film when
Oh
it came out.
yeah, with Henry Fonda.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Well, it goes on. You can go. You
It
can
goes
do
on.
your own research on this, and
But I love the no, and this is a classic De La Rita's production.
yeah,
In a
yeah.
sense, it's a little bit of everything, and he'll pull together different genres, and it's funny. This film actually, I like I said, I liked it better the second time around. I think to watch it, to appreciate it, you need to at least watch the film and go back and watch some of the. Did you watch some of the classic Flash Gordon serials?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because people that I did not, and those are beloved.
They are,
People love them.
and they, I mean, they're well done for their time. They had they were big budget, and
Mhm.
interestingly, unlike a lot of the contemporary sci-fi serials, they spent most of their time on Mongo. I mean, it was
Interesting.
just the chapter one. They flew in their ship, and then they went home in the last one. But I mean, it was not a it was all rather planet bound for the whole series. But it was still very interesting, and it was always they're always cutting to Zarkov, who's working on the radio to try to contact Earth, and
That oh, so is Zarkov still on Earth while they're
no, Zarkov is on Mongo, but he
no,
builds
no.
he
Ah,
he builds and adapts a radio to try to contact Earth, and it's not
Earth.
until they get extremely powerful transmitters they can aim at Mongo that they finally catch Dr. Zarkov's calls in the 12th episode
In the
of
12th
the
episode.
yeah.
There's a fun
They did like
interview.
3 serials, and they went back to Mongo in most of them.
There's a fun energy in these serials that I feel like we're kind of missing now. Everything's got to be so dark, and like I'm watching Silo, and I do like Silo. It's on
Yeah,
Apple, But on the other hand, it's like sometimes you gotta it's so dark. Everything's got to make so much sense.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of comedy. And it's funny. It kind of I was thinking, what do we have now? And I'm thinking, The Expanse feels a little bit. It's very serious, very dark.
Yes, it is.
But it feels a little more colorful, like this, as opposed to some of these other serial shows that are out.
Well, the one thing that the Expanse has in everybody is that they don't play around too much with the science. They have the Epstein engine, and beyond that, everything is uh, everything
And,
is pretty much to establish physics, and it's
and they
mostly
make that
personal stories that are about the individuals.
right, and they make the Epstein engine pretty funny. I mean, it's
Oh, they do, they
because
do.
it's like I'm clicking it in, and we're never going to hear from that guy again.
Right, right. Epstein himself, yeah, the uh, uh, the force of artificial gravity kept him from being able to reach the switch to turn it off, and they expect that he's completely out of the solar system by the time the first story begins.
The good, and he took the files with him, and so we'll never get the Epstein files, I guess. He's off with it. But it was great. You needed some little thing to, if you're really hardcore, and we're both hardcore science fiction,
Of course.
science, uh, and so you like to think about how this would be real. How can you travel this fast? And it's not faster than the speed of light, but still it's fast, fast. And so the Epstein engine figures into that.
Well, yeah,
Then
there's no problem with going fast. The problem is the force. You get gravity two ways: one by rotation, and the other by push of the jets. It pushes you back like you do if you're accelerating in a car. But the
uh,
problem is, if you continue burning the engine, it will put the G-force until it kills you.
exactly.
And so
That's
they have to
yeah.
they have an engine that is advanced enough and can carry enough fuel that can get them just to that point, and then they flip over and burn the other direction, and
Right, that's
the
right,
gravity continues, and then they slow down halfway there.
and that can be bad for your heart.
It
You
can
gotta
be, and
that's
there's all kinds of stuff that they mention in the books, especially they
ah,
call the people that live in the asteroid belt long bones because they don't have gravity to compress them.
to compress the bones. Yeah, that makes sense. They call 'em
Yeah,
and, you got, what was her name? I love the Belters and different factions among the Belters,
right.
and their energy just it's not Flash Gordon, but it lends itself a little bit to some of the energy from those serials.
Yeah,
It's just
there's
kinda
there's less
fun.
good and bad though. I mean, you have
Probably so, yeah.
the UN people on one side, you have the Martian Republic on the other, but
Right.
we're getting pretty far away from Flash Gordon
From
by this
Flash Gordon,
point.
the only the one thing that I was just thinking, what's the name? Camila? I was trying to think she not the UN woman, but she's one of the leaders of the Belters. And anyway, just their
Yeah,
interactions. There's one show where
yeah,
they're literally caught together and they can't get out. They're shoved. These two characters are shoved together, and they're from the Belters, and they really disagree. But it's a little bit comic and
yeah.
fun, and I just
Well,
thought
I
that
think the closest thing that comes to this is the Buck Rogers TV series that they did in what was it, the 70s,
yeah,
late 70s, and
right,
it was I mean, it was way too low budget, but it had the same kind of feel to it. You
right.
had you had basically Buck, and his nemesis was Princess Ardala, who was
Ah,
her father was King Draco, and we never saw King Draco, but it was always Ardala that was causing the trouble.
gotcha.
So
Yeah,
that
you're
felt
right.
more like it, where you have the princesses, and the different civilizations, and they had the conceit of a Stargate where they could jump interstellar. Um,
Right.
the original
I think
Buck
that
Rogers and the serials, they were just able to get on a ship and go where they wanted in a few minutes. They
I
didn't even sit
right.
down. They just stood up while they're flying the ship, and then got
And
there.
then they would get I think the TV shows might have been a Glenn Larson production.
They were.
He's kind of like a TV version of Dino De Laurentiis, involved in a ton of things on TV,
Yeah.
and including Battlestar and the
Also
Search
kind
for
of like
Lost.
Irwin Allen. Let's see how we can do this
Yes,
cheap and don't worry about the continuity. But
and something good may come out of it. You never know.
yeah, sometimes it does.
35% of the time,
Yeah.
something good does. Maybe it depends on the show, but yeah.
Lost in Space still endures.
Woo, it
So,
does.
our Gilligan's Island
Yes.
comparison here, we do have people who are stranded on another planet, and one is a movie star and or football player. Same
Right,
same
football
difference.
player. That's exactly right.
You have the professor and Zarkov,
Got a professor.
and yeah,
I love that. That's
closest we're gonna
exactly.
get.
I was looking
We'll
for
give this
actors
one
that I
Gilligan,
didn't.
I think.
Yeah. So how many Gilligans would you say?
One Gilligan, one Gilligan. I
One Gill
think that
I'm gonna
that's
go with what do we do, a 5 or a 10 scale? Is it, or
well,
4?
if it were a 10 scale, it would still be one Gilligan for me.
You know what? I'm gonna go with 2.5, and we'll just leave it a mystery as to what our scale is. It could be a 4 or a 5 or a 10, but I'll stick with 2.5.
Yeah. We have a rather fluid scale.
You got it. Yes, we do.
Okay, well, I think that's all the time we have this time, but thank you for joining us, and thank you, Professor. We'll talk again next week, but and for the rest of you, we'll be back next week. I'm coming back on Tuesday with another Farscape. Well, actually, we have this week. Tomorrow will be we'll have a review of the latest Strange New Worlds. And then on Tuesday we'll go back to Farscape, which we missed this week, but we'll catch back up. And then we'll see you back on Thursday for our little soiree that we do here with me and Professor O. So, Professor, have a good one, and everybody else, don't go far.